So I just want to give a more proper introduction to Brian. Brian, again, he's a comedian friend of mine that I've known for nearly a decade, and I just, not to lick your asshole right off the bat immediately, even though I know you'd love it, but Brian is by far the only local comedian I like really love. Like, and I don't mean I don't love other people personally, but I'm talking about what he does on stage is the only local act that like I really, and I'm bad about watching local acts. Like usually I spend all my time outside of the showroom or like pacing around and not paying attention, and I'm honestly horribly unsupportive of local comedy from an audience and paying attention and sharing notes perspective, and I feel bad about it, but it's not entirely dishonest. Brian, on the other hand, is easily, like I said, my fucking favorite comic. He's a killer with the one-liners, and I just wanted to say that to you. When I talk to like friends and family about comedy or like comedians, you almost always come up. Like whether I'm talking about your material or whether I'm just talking about our text exchange, I always have to explain you to other people. So
what a burden. No, but thank you so much. That means a lot. And I would say that I was actually thinking about some of the local comics. I think there's a lot of underappreciated people that deserve way more, and not to lick your asshole, but I think you deserve a lot more credit in the community than you kind of have received. Maybe you're getting it and I just haven't seen it. But I feel like there's a lack of respect for some of the comics that have been doing it for a long time at a high level.
Yes.
And that's been frustrating for me. I was actually thinking about that this morning, so it's interesting that you kind of brought that up.
Yeah. And to just go ahead and shout out some other people, like I do absolutely love like Louis Bishop.
Louis Bishop is one of them.
Brian Granger, Colton.
Colton, I think, is brilliant.
Yeah.
And we're obviously going to leave off a bunch of people, but it's kind of sad to see that a lot of people have kind of stopped pursuing it as much as they used to.
Yeah. And a handful of podcasts that aren't out yet, I think you'll really enjoy the one I did with Timmy. It's going to be the 7th one. And even the one that I did before that, that'll come out today or tomorrow. Sorry, it's Saturday the 21st right now. So the 22nd, Jimmy and Julia's is going to come out. So that's Jimmy Smith. You know him, right?
No, I know Jimmy.
Yeah. So we talked a lot about local comedy, and I do feel like and me and Timmy really got into it, where the scene has really shifted. And it's not this like cool, fun, family, creative, promotional environment. It's a little colder and not as unique and cool as it was.
And I think there's a few factors, and I don't know if you want to go into this, but I think part of it is the nature of the actual location of the club where it was. Just a little kind of basement thing. And we were forced to kind of be with each other, and kind of, that was the fun part, was hanging out, before and during the shows and all that stuff. I think the new place is awesome. It's huge and it's beautiful. And I think go see a show there, go see all the shows there. But in terms of kind of getting that kind of closeness, it's more spread out, and by that nature I think people are kind of more distant physically, and what's the word I'm looking for, figuratively.
There is definitely something also, like I described earlier, like how I'm really bad about being in the room to watch comics. Like if I have the option to step outside somewhere nice and quiet, I will do that
100% of the time.
And we always had the out back area, but like even like if you're gonna be inside, you had to be in the showroom in the basement club. And so, but like we would chill in the back, and there were spaces to hang in the back. But now, if like you're gonna be in the showroom, there is that back row, but it's not quite the same as those like back couches or like standing space.
Right out by the back doors and stuff like that. Like some of my funnest memories of Dead Crow is like hanging out with you or whoever, standing at the back and just talking shit about whoever's on stage and making fun of how terrible they are, or if they're doing good, celebrating that too. But that in fairness, I've been to the new club 4 times maybe since it's open. I really haven't been doing comedy at all. So maybe there is that, and I'm just missing out on it. I don't know.
And I do also want to say too, because I think you and I do share a lot of like what we're already kind of going into, like this criticism about like it's just not as fun as it used to be. And I think that there are a lot of factors that are true and outside of our control that have shaped it this way. But I do also think you and I share sort of like pessimism about like our own sort of relationship with comedy.
Absolutely.
That can be a little like infectious in us and maybe blind us in some way. Because I, looking back, having edited some of the podcasts where I'm sharing this sort of criticism about where the scene is today, I do feel that there is a fair amount, like I'm being maybe a little too harsh, and I think that I probably could be doing more to have conversations in the networking variety of like getting myself actually booked more. I could be making more of an effort to put myself out there.
Sure.
For sure. In terms of stand-up.
No, I get it. And my criticism of that is you shouldn't have to. I've never been good at talking to people or networking in any way. I was lucky enough that people seemed to like my stuff and would approach me to do things.
That was how I always got booked too. Yes.
And I think that's kind of the way it should be. I don't want to be the asshole. It's like, did you not think I was funny?
Yeah. Hey, can you put me on the show?
Can I do your show? I don't want that.
Yes.
If you don't want me on your show, then you're not asking.
Yes. Yeah, I do think that, in those early years where it was more fun and it seemed like a better sense of community and like friends, I do feel that, I never had to ask anyone to book me. It was just I would do well at open mics doing my own thing, and then every once in a while someone would fairly regularly. Someone would, hey, I'm putting on a showcase. I'd love to have you on. It's this amount of time. Here's the date. Boom. And that's it. But like, I do think at a certain era, like when it got really oversaturated with like younger college age people, and then it got much more cliquey rather than being this one kind of unified family. That's when these sort of socio-political discussions started coming into play, where it's like, we have to be drinking buddies outside of this, because that's how you get stage time with me without asking. Otherwise, you got to play the political game and kiss some babies and ask nicely to be on the show
to a certain extent. But it's always sort of been that way. It's just more pronounced now, I think, maybe. But in fairness to anyone who's putting out shows, I've also turned down a lot of shows because I've developed this weird stage fright. And I just haven't really wanted to go do them. And so I don't know. Maybe if I put myself out there more, I would obviously get more out of it. But like I said, I've been to the New Club maybe 4 times. It's probably been close to a year since I've done any kind of stand-up at this point. Do you still go regularly?
I've been going more. I mean, like I told you, probably around summer last year, I'm just like kind of over it and I don't feel like going. And then I probably took like, I wouldn't say it was like a solid, didn't go up at all for 6 months, but I probably went up enough times to count on one, maybe 2 hands, probably one. And then the past couple months, I've been going at least every Thursday that I can. Maybe I skip one every once in a while if I'm super busy or tired, but I've been mostly going again.
So do you feel like you're getting more back into the fold now, or are you still feeling the kind of, I don't want to say outsider status, but you know what I mean, kind of what we've been saying?
Yeah, no, I definitely feel that, like what I expressed a little bit ago about feeling like a lot of the pessimism is like mostly in my head.
Of course.
I think it's trying to get myself to believe that as much as possible so I can just take the responsibility for forcing myself to go up. And I think what's happened over the years, because I don't think I've talked about it in this way. I've always done what I've done to some degree. And I think that over the years from starting to where I am now, as most comics would and should, get better at doing what they do and shaping what they do. I think that I've improved for sure over the years. But I do think there's this larger socio-political thing going on, like globally, nationally, and then it's become even locally manifest. And despite me being better at what I do because of the nature of my comedy, people are more against it. Like I think that there's been this thing that's come up where around 2017, people, a larger amount of people started dispensing with comedy and art first in the context of a comedy show or comedy club, like most people are like that, and every once in a while you have some people who are like, no, some things are off limits. You don't joke about them. But that was always been like a small minority of people, and you're always just like, well, that's the complaining Karens. Like, fuck them. Even the club owners and the comedians are like that. Fuck those people. They're just whiny little bitches. But then I do think around Trump era, a large amount of people started suddenly going, well, no, I actually do think that there are some moral stances I should take, that even in the context of art and comedy, this matters more to me. And so if there is a certain like straight white man making jokes about things that he shouldn't joke about in my ideology, then I'm going to have a problem with that. I'm going to call him out, and if I have any power in not letting him go up, then I'm going to use that power to not put that out there. I'm going to tell him he's not allowed to do that, or shouldn't do that, or blah, blah, blah. Like, I feel like those conversations have really increased. And rather than being one random audience member every once in a while, it's now comics and club owners and show bookers that are now saying these things to me. So that's what I've never cared about, the small little bit of audience.
That's what I was going to ask. Do you even care at that point?
Yeah, well, that's always been, I don't give a fuck about those audience members, because that just happens. That's just the nature of the beast.
It's always been.
But because it's comics and show bookers, like, it's gatekeepers. You know, it's people that matter. It's not that I care that they're upset and offended. It's that I care about what effect their offense has on me.
Okay.
And that's where I have gotten really frustrated and don't know what to do about it. So I'm sorry, this is a long point.
No,
but this
you're
is the point I'm getting to. Because of that, I open myself up to be like, well, you know what? If it's the people around me and my peers that are now saying this to me, maybe I do need to listen to some degree.
Okay.
Maybe I do need to get a little bit better about balancing my act, walking the line a little bit better rather than just jumping way over it like I like to do sometimes. Maybe I should get better about that art. And also this sort of, even before this shift that I'm talking about, pretty common for people that are comics that are booking shows to say to me, I love you, I want to put you on my show, but I can't predict what you're going to do. You're just such a wild card, and it's such a risk to put you on the show. So I love you, but I can't do it.
I get that a lot too.
Yes.
I'm kidding.
Well, yeah, I was about to say, like, you're fairly consistently.
Yes. You know what you're getting.
But anyway, so
yeah.
I got to finish this point.
Yeah. Sorry.
So when people would say that to me, there's that, and I'm like, well, in the COVID years I got a lot more, because I was one of the few performers that was going up immediately. I got a lot more shows. I got a lot more paid shows, and I got a lot more chances to do long form, like 20-minute sets, 30-minute sets, hour sets. And I really got to develop and polish the hour I was working on from 2020 to about the end of 2021. And I did repeat my material a lot more, where I used to not do that so much. I avoided repeating material as much as possible, just trying to crank new shit out. And that was part of why I'm unpredictable and you don't know what you're going to get. Because you do not know what my set is going to be content-wise. You know, these are not the jokes Cameron's been working on for 2 years straight. You just literally don't know what you're going to get. So I felt like I put this effort in to really polish up an hour and preserve what it is I do, and do it a lot better and make it more consistent. And I think I was getting booked because of the scarcity of a lot of the comics that were more solid, not willing to go up for the longest time in that COVID era. But then once a lot of them started coming back, the bookers and comics ditched me. They were just like, and so it seemed like I put in this effort to appeal to this thing that this pressure my peers were putting onto me. And I put in this effort, and it just was not recognized. Like, it was just not acknowledged. It was not appreciated. It ended up doing nothing for me in the end. I'm less booked than ever now. And so I don't know. To me, it felt like David Lynch always talks about him making Dune. Do you know about his? Like, it was his biggest failure. It was his biggest budget movie, and he just fucking failed. And he says that, like, it's about this integrity thing. You know, like, he didn't get the full creative control that he wanted doing that, and that's why it failed. So he feels like he failed twice. One, he didn't get the thing he wanted to make, and the thing he had to make failed. It was a failure. Right. So that's it. I was compromising to some degree who I am and what I do to appeal to a group of people and peers that ultimately said fuck you in the end. And that's where a lot of my frustration comes from. And now I'm back at this place like, you know what? Just the same as I've never given a fuck about that small minority of Karen complaining audience member, that now has to apply to the comedians and showbookers who are being fucking annoying little bitches to me. That's where I'm at.
Okay, to that end, sure. But do you feel like you learned more about the process and improved your act through going through? So here's kind of something I've been thinking about too. So I say a lot of heinous shit in my stand-up, and I think it flies under the radar because I also throw some softballs up there too.
Yeah.
You know, some silly puns or whatever, and then I say some pretty fucked up shit, and no one ever seems to think, oh, Brian's a dirty comic. I guess I'm not a dirty comic, but I say some pretty messed up things.
Yeah, for sure. I love it.
And I get away with it. And I think it's just like if you're playing baseball, you throw a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, the batter's gonna miss it. Keep throwing it. The batter's eventually going to hit it. How you stop the batter from hitting that 100-mile-an-hour fastball is you throw an 80-mile-an-hour changeup, so you don't know what's coming. So that's kind of what I think. Like, if you beat people over the head with dirty, crazy shit, I like to pepper it with some changeups in there too. Yeah. So do you feel like you've applied that? And it sounds like that's kind of what you did with your hour, right?
To some degree. I also don't feel like I've always been dirty.
I did not mean that towards you. I was just kind of reflecting on myself.
Yeah. And I also I feel like your format is a little safer in terms of letting the audience knows it's a joke, because your jokes literally are like the format
They're
of a
jokes.
joke, where a lot of mine is sort of this sounding like it's off the cuff, a person sharing themselves and their thoughts in real time. And so that seems more dangerous to people because they don't have this clear line. We're like, yes, you might make this joke that visits a very a sensitive subject like ogling a girl who's under 18 on the beach, you know. But see, you do it in the way it's in this format where it's like, clearly this is just invented material for the sake of this joke.
Yes.
Where mine, it sounds like this guy's telling a real story.
Yeah, he might be
thoughts.
fucked up. Right,
exactly. And so I think that is
that's fair.
Yes. What makes a lot of, even though we might visit the same subjects, what makes mine harder to digest for an audience of strangers.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair. I didn't think of it that way, but yeah, I wish I had a little bit more of the kind of myself in my comedy. I guess I do through my jokes because that's just kind of how I am, but I wish I had a little bit more of what you do in terms of expressing yourself. But you're right. It's a little bit more dangerous, and I'm probably too scared to be that way.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've always wanted to see what you would be like if you explored outside. And I've seen you do like little bits where you do like songs and stuff. I've always wanted to see what it would be like. Brian takes the mic off the stand and walks around and shares himself. But also, like, sometimes I wish that I was better at doing the more like formatted jokes. I wish I was better at writing that stuff. And I think I can do it when I sit down and try, but I just am so not like I gotten so used to doing things the way I have. It's so hard to break the process which I've always made comedy. Yes. It feels so uncomfortable to write material.
So one of my favorite quotes, I'm sure I've told you this before. Do you know who Mitch Hurwitz is? Creator of Arrested Development.
Okay, I know Arrested Development.
Great show. Yeah. But I was reading a book and he had a quote attributed to him, I think, or maybe he was quoting someone else, but it said, your style is formed by what you can't do. And I thought that was really, because I had always kind of beaten myself up, like, why can't I be a storyteller? Why can't I, take the mic out and walk around and be myself and share these stories? Because I've tried and it always failed. I just retreat back into jokey jokes.
Yeah.
But I thought that was really kind of encouraging. Like, you don't have to be everything. You can be the one thing that you're good at, and that's sufficient.
Yeah, and I do think you are very good at what you do, and I don't feel like it's necessary for you to try to be something that doesn't feel natural for you. Again, like it's a curiosity, and I would like to see what it's like. But yeah, like I always tell you, one of your favorite jokes of mine is that Scooby Doo is a lot.
I haven't told that one in a long time.
Can I just do it?
Yeah,
real
of
quick?
course.
Yeah. So one of my favorite jokes of Brian's, this is one I tell.
And if I may interject, it's not a good joke at all. It makes absolutely no sense, but go ahead.
I love it so much, though. Mellow Yellow is a lot like Scooby-Doo's sex life. At the end of the day, it's just some bitch Mountain Dew. It's just such a stretch.
Yeah, no, it's horrible. And I love, like, that, not that joke in particular, but I love the stretches. Like, I love how far some of them, you have to really twist your mind to kind of get some of my favorite jokes of mine. That sounds really egotistical, but yeah, it's such a stretch. And if you think about it too hard, it completely falls apart because it makes no sense whatsoever.
And there's another one. I don't exactly remember like how it goes verbatim, but I love the one where you're talking. I mean, dude, the toddlers and tiaras bit.
I can't say that anymore.
We won't do that, but you can't say that anymore.
No.
It's such a good joke.
I have so many jokes I can't say anymore.
What about the one about the men are like dogs, where you do it?
I don't even tell that one at all. I mean,
you don't tell that one anymore.
No, I don't think it's that great. I
always love.
I think it's a 3-part joke, and the kind of the funny part is I say men are like dogs, and then I say the stupid first punchline. It's a real softball, and then men are like dogs, and I just tell the same joke 3 times with 3 different punchlines.
Right, and the third one's just like a really hard.
Yeah, it's really just graphic and disgusting.
Yes, yeah. I love that. So, do you have like a process where you write these jokes, or do you just kind of like live your life and wait for them to come to you and then you write them down?
Mostly the second. There are a handful of jokes, and I would say 95% of the time it just comes to me 2:00 in the morning. I text myself or sign into notes or whatever and write down, oh, that's a funny word. And then I build backwards around it. Like, oh, okay, well, I can make it match up with this phrase or whatever. There are a handful of jokes that I had a punchline for and just needed to figure out the premise, and it would take years. What's the one I'm thinking of? I should just do my entire set right now, right?
Yeah, go for it.
That's the cruise joke. I went on a cruise recently to Jamaica.
Yeah, I love this one. You can just do it.
And it was weird because it seems like every bar in Jamaica is a sports bar, because every time I would walk into a bar, somebody would yell out, "There's a game on." So I had the game on thing for years and years and years, and I could never figure out how to attach a premise to it. So that one literally probably was a 2 or 3 year process of me just testing out different ideas of how to get this stupid pun wordplay joke.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the example I would go to for something I had to actually work on. But I think what you're more asking is, do I sit down and like brainstorm or anything like that? And I've tried.
Yeah.
The closest I come to that is I'll open my notes in my phone and then I'll write the jokes out on a piece of paper. And sometimes that helps me kind of craft them a little bit. But I don't know what this says about me, but basically every joke I put in my phone is essentially fully formed as soon as I think about it. It's not like I grind away very often.
Yeah. Something I noticed recently about like what seems to make up a large percentage of my process is like I usually let ideas just like come to me and then make a note in my phone. It's like maybe it's the whole thing. It's usually a piece. It's usually a premise, and then I just go talk it out loud on stage without a plan for a punchline, and then I find a punchline.
And that doesn't scare you? Or do you think it's fun?
It does. Because there's definitely so many times where I do that where I end up not finding a punchline up there. I just present a premise and then weasel my way out of it and just jump to the next thing and like just make note. Like, and then sometimes it's that that negative emotion associated with the failure of that. And a lot of times, I would always tape my stuff, so I'd be able to watch that back and even watch that failure back, and that would motivate me. Like, oh, now I know what to do. Like almost like you get in an argument with someone, and you
think of the perfect insult as you're driving away.
Yes, you think of the perfect insult as you're driving away. That's a lot what it's like. But something I noticed, like, became a little more consciously aware of, is that a lot of times, even though I'll have like notes of things compiled over the past week of like, these are half-baked premises, ooh, I don't know, and then it's getting to be that last like 10 to 5 minutes before I go up, then the nerves start coming in, then suddenly there's this flood of ideas, and so many times in that last 5 or 10 minutes before I go up, I throw out the entire set and come up with an entirely new one. And for some reason, there's something about that I think has always been, because I always like to say, really good comedians, what they do, like part of the repeating material, is they get really good at memorizing the words like an actor would memorize a script, but then they get really good at performing it and creating the illusion that they're saying the words for the first time.
Sure.
I like to take a methodical approach to that and actually look like I'm coming up with the words for the first time.
Because you kind of are.
Because I actually am. Yes. And then once I have something, I'm like, okay, that worked. And I can kind of remember it from rough memory. Again, never write it down verbatim, but I'm pretty good at repeating it back almost verbatim if I continue to do it. But yeah, that's always been, I've just, that noticing the nervous pressure activating like a flood of ideas.
Yeah.
That's something I became aware of. Like, I do this a lot. This is like been the case at least 50% of the time for what I do.
That's terrifying.
Yeah. A little bit.
For me.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I always go up with my note card. And sometimes it's for effect, like I have a joke that would involve me, pretending to read the note card or whatever. But I require a security blanket on stage. So even just thinking of ad-libbing a set that you came up with 5 minutes beforehand is not in my comfort zone at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I had this fascination around 2018 with going up there very unprepared and just getting like walking my feet on hot coals to create calluses on my feet, where I just got really used to just the horrible emotional pain of just absolute embarrassing failure of going up there with nothing and not being able to come up with anything.
You're good enough at it that I've never seen you just completely fail.
Yeah, and I guess it's about my judgment. There's plenty of times I go up and it's like maybe a middle of the road set, and there's some people saying like, "Hey, that was good up there. It was a good attempt." But in my head, I'm like, that was the worst fucking thing I've ever done. I get that. Yeah,
I get that. But you're naturally funny enough that you could just go up there with literally nothing and just figure out 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or whatever.
Well, that's the goal of trying to get used to that failure. So much to where I develop, like, I would argue a lot of time in my creative writing classes is like a lot of the professors were very adamant about the definite necessity of the revision process for every single thing you write. And I've always been more like the South Park approach, where it's like, if you spend too much time revising a thing, you really lose the original essence of it. It's a lot of times the first thing you do is really the best. And so rather than taking one single, let's say it's a poem about love, rather than taking this one poem about love and spending years perfecting it, I'll take a whole year and write 30 new poems about love that are very different from one another. And then at least one of them will be great. I think I just get better at editing in real time by doing it that way, rather than getting better at holding on to one single nugget and like just polishing it forever.
Well, you probably crave, what's the word I'm looking for? Not uniqueness, but novelty.
That exactly, yeah.
And I'm the exact same way, and that's why I have the joke. I put it in my phone. I'm fully formed. I'm done with it. I'll say it on stage. That's it. I'm done. I'm not working on it. I'll come up with 30 more.
Yes.
So it's kind of similar. I crave the novelty of the creation.
Yeah. Once you've got your joke down, you really don't need to make... Every once in a while, I've seen you make some little adjustment or try an alternate thing out. But usually it does seem like your first iteration of it is done.
And then if I take it on stage and it fails that first time, I throw it away.
Yeah.
I don't try to batter it into submission. Like, this one's got to work, because I'll come up with 30 new ones that are way better than that stupid one that I thought was funny.
Yeah.
Just get rid of it.
Yeah. There's most of the time I'm the same way. If I try something out and the first time it doesn't work at all, I'll usually let it go. But there's at least a small portion of subjects or jokes that I've really...
Your babies.
Well, maybe that, but it's more like there's some sort of connection to it that feels very true and real, and it seems like it's something deep, and I just haven't figured out how to make it work, but I cannot seem to let go of it. Like, there's this whole thing, and I've tried doing a bunch of different jokes about this thing about how a nice ass on a woman actually really upsets me. For me, I think that's real and it's funny. I feel like
I've heard you say that premise before.
Yes. And I've tried a bunch of different... I think the best one I did was about going out to eat and there being some woman in yoga pants. It's like an eye shot of where I'm sitting, and like it's ruining my meal. And I end up like comparing, you know, because of course it makes me look like a fucking sexist pig complaining about a woman's body being in my vision. But I've tried to explain it in this way, like through an analogy. Like, imagine if you walked into a severely underfunded orphanage with just a huge bowl of freshly made aromatic spaghetti and meatballs, and you're just walking through the halls, and all their kids are cocking their head looking at that big old bowl of spaghetti and meatballs, and you're looking at them, no, this isn't for you, you fucking perverts.
Right.
Like,
right.
So yeah, and again, to me, that is not that good, and I wish that, I feel like there's something really good there that I haven't gotten to. And if I put the proper amount of attention in like some sort of writing process, I'll figure it out. But I just don't ever allocate the time to sit down and figure it out.
No, I get it. What's the from one of Mitch Hedberg's specials? He says some joke and it bombs, and he goes, "Well, go inside my head and you'll see why I think it's funny," or something. I forget what it was. I don't know. I don't have the patience to sit down and write something, and by nature of kind of what I do comedy wise, it doesn't require that.
Yeah.
Oh no.